Okay, so what we're gonna do here first is outline the top part of this headlight, because this car is white, black, carbon fiber everywhere. Really think two-toning these headlights is gonna add a lot more aggression to the front end of the car, and also just give it that one custom feature that you don't see on many other cars that just have tinted headlights. This becomes very easy with light wrap. You're gonna see that because we're gonna use the knifeless tape. This is design line. I've already laid it right along this line right here. If you notice the lights in my garage, a lot of people think they're distracting to work under because of the honeycomb. I can assure you they only look that way on camera. To your eyes, you get very used to them. And one advantage that they have is on a body line like this, especially on a clear plastic, I can see those reflections perfectly like a grid drawn on the shape. So it becomes very easy to follow that line accurately. I'm gonna try mid-smoke down first, then we're gonna cap the entire thing in the light smoke film. That's gonna give this a nice embossed look and not like it was stuck on top, since it'll be buried underneath. Let's give it a shot. I really wanna make sure that the whole top of this light is done perfectly. This gets very skinny down here, so if I do any stretching, I'm gonna try to make sure that it's in this area because it's gonna be a lot less noticeable than it will be up here. Of course, with the mid-smoke, you're not gonna see the air release channel through the film very well, so we shouldn't have that problem anyway. We're gonna make sure we can hit the shape. This was a 20-inch wide roll that I just cut in half, so I'm using a little less, or about 10 inches here. You can see I've just locked the back part of the film. This is a really flat part of the headlight, so this is gonna be a breeze. Go ahead and pull even tension. You can see right there, that glasses out the entire top surface. Pulling just the most minor amount out here to work out any tension that may be forming. We have a perfectly done top face of the light. And now we're gonna get to that point where I'm gonna want to start stretching the material. Because we have so much to work with, there's no reason, since this is so skinny, to leave all this excess here. It's only gonna get in our way. So I'm gonna go ahead and trim it out and leave myself just that little bit. Now, I don't wanna put a ton of stretch on it and get it all the way to the very end. I wanna lock this end in with little tension. So I'm gonna go ahead and stretch and try to concentrate that stretch here, because naturally if the vinyl shrinks, it's gonna shrink in the shortest direction. It's gonna grab that hump nicely. I'm gonna go ahead and apply some heat. You can see the vinyl become a lot more liquid as you're working with it. You can see how easy I'm able to just stretch it. So I know that I've reached that limit where I can make the end of the headlight now. While I'm still holding it, and the vinyl's a little warm, I'm applying it down. Just working that one area. I don't care about all this tension over here. It's gonna get cut away with the knifeless. Now look, we've pulled ourselves 1 inch over where the light is. I'm gonna pull back, I have 1 inch exposed. Now I'm gonna shrink that film. And with as little tension as possible, just to make sure I have no wrinkles, I apply it. And now we have, if you could see this tension, you'd see a bright red spot right here. It'd fade off into yellow and go back into green. The same thing, this whole face would be green and it transitioned into yellow and red. I might Photoshop that for you so you can see it, but that's what I see when I look at this film. And the other thing I see is long-term success. This film is not gonna be lifting anytime soon. Cadillac's given us a great place on this side of the light to run our blade where we know we're not gonna damage anything. The knifeless right here is great. So we're gonna go ahead and pull that. Actually, I misshot. I'm about 1/8 of an inch short here. So, the repositionability and the ability with light wrap will give me the ability just to pull. I'm gonna focus all the tension at the top, right there at the top. And now that I've come around this back corner, apply more heat and it shrinks the film immediately and it locks it right there at that edge. So same technique as we did here, we just did here. And naturally the film just tacos or falls into place around that. And this is not gonna fail here. These are your high fail points. Your high fail points are gonna be on your ends where you stretch. So if you concentrate the stretch in other areas and you manage that tension correctly, you can wrap almost any light with light wrap. So here we go with the knifeless pull. You can see this is the design line tape. It cuts light wrap just beautifully. Pull this right off the front face of the light. Come back and take our 2 pieces of tape out and lock that edge down with my glove. Now that I've got that done, get that sticky bit of knifeless off of me. Come back, do a little bit of post heat. Just want to make sure that this layer is down, that edge is perfect. I don't see anything wonky, weird, nothing's happening here. You can see this is a 2016 car. There's definitely a few areas where the UV coating is starting to come off of the headlight, but that's not going to be a problem, and light wrap's actually going to add that UV protection back. But do know the film is so thin that you will be able to see those from about a 6-inch distance. That's not enough to really ruin the job. And it just goes to show that you don't have to have a perfect off the showroom car to start this process. So I'm gonna pull tightly. There's no real reason to wrap this first layer around. I'm gonna pull very tight, right at that edge, so that I can run my blade along the side of the plastic, not on the plastic, so I'm not cutting anything. There's no risk of that, and I'm also getting 0 film to wrap that edge. The reason I'm doing that is I'm gonna cap this film in another layer and embed this eyebrow, so I don't need anything to wrap around and hold. Now right here, I'm gonna have to transition my cut and come down because of the shape of the light. Be very careful not to cut on the car. And Cadillac has done a good job building this, so the body lines are somewhat tight. Gotta be careful with your blade control. Same thing, just switch directions. Right here, because of that tension that we put, that film really wants to lay down onto the side of the light here. If it wants to, you know, I'm not gonna stop it. So I'm gonna hold a bridge and I'm gonna cut up. Kind of cutting arbitrarily, but it won't be seen. And it will actually help the vinyl hold and make this transition to where the bumper is further back in the vehicle. So that looks really, really nice. Nobody can tell that's there. Come down. Trim this out. And remove the light smoke. Sorry, mid smoke, light wrap. There we go. So we got the first eyelid down. Now we're gonna come back with the light smoke, tint over the entire thing. But that is one cool look. Okay, so now we're gonna come back and we're gonna take care of the entire light in the light smoke film. You're gonna see I'm gonna wrap right over the mid smoke that we placed down, the eyelid right here. With this, I'm gonna try to stretch as little as possible, especially because I don't want the air channels to distort and for us to be able to see those. It's light wrap, so you do have air channels to contend with. You're gonna see a little ghosting on that light where the light hits the lens. But you're gonna see that with any film, any pigment that you put over a lens, when the light passes through it, it's gonna catch a little of it. So it's gonna do it on light wrap, it's gonna do it on any of the other 10 films that you might put on the car, but we've not had many people say that that was a deal breaker. Typically, the light looks so good after this, that doesn't even matter. But what I really wanna do on this car is I wanna make sure that I get this entire front face without having to do much stretch at all, because I don't want those air channels to be distorted or the gloss level. I really want it to be very uniform right there. So let's kind of make sure that we have the film to where it's gonna reach the whole light. I feel pretty good about that. I'm gonna have to stretch a little bit right here, but we're gonna use that effect I was talking about, the memory effect, that's gonna help us twist this vinyl to come back this direction on the headlight while focusing mainly on this front area, which is what I want to do. So it'd be very easy to glass this out over this surface, you can see, because we put so little stretch on it. I'm gonna have to put as very, very little tension and just keep kind of lifting, pushing the vinyl down. See, this is forming. I'm gonna pull back up over that top and pull straight out against it. Lock that down with my finger. And we're really getting ourselves down into this corner with very little tension. Oh, and now we have a big crease. We've put a big crease in the material. This were a calendared vinyl. At this point, you'd pretty much be shot. That's gonna be in the material. You're gonna be pulling more material off the shelf and getting ready to put it on your car. This is a cast vinyl construction, just like car wrap material. So it's self-healing to an extent, but definitely to an extent that that's gonna come right out. So now it's all about small triangles. Very, very small triangles. I'm pretty confident in this, and this is annoying me enough where I'm gonna go and pull the backing paper off that. But I wanted to work this area as quickly and as uniformly as possible, just to prevent any temperature changes or anything that might cause that adhesive to become more visible. So let's just go ahead and finish. See how easy this is. Now we put a lot of stretch on the material right here. I don't like that. I'm gonna pull it up, shrink it, let it come back up off the car, and lay it down now tension free, so that that front edge never lifts on us. It also allows me at this point to put a relief cut right here. Just want to make sure that that's not going to be seen on the bottom of the light, but it's not. It's right below where the lens is. To go ahead and lock that in place. Bam. Put that down. Now we can take care of this corner and get it around this top hump. We're in the mid 70s right now, so this film is really working perfectly. This is the ideal temperature for installing this product. It allows me to use just a little heat to make the product more pliable without having to use so much heat and get aggressive in my stretches where I may accidentally overstretch the material. There's one thing you want to avoid, because in a hotter environment, you can reach the material's limits and overstretch it, and it's gonna hold for a day, maybe, but it's not gonna hold long term. It'll pull back and curl on the edges. You shouldn't have any of that problem here, though. As you can see, there's no crazy wrinkles forming anywhere around here. There's no wild tension. We can move up to the top of the light. And you can see, light wrap on light wrap has a pretty good adhesion. So what we're gonna wanna do is concentrate our heat in that top area, because that's the part of the vinyl that's gonna need to stretch, help me twist, and get this laid down right here. Wham. That's where I want to lock. Now I've got all my tension here. All these tension lines are moving this way. Those can be solved very easily using the triangle technique. All I have to do is lift up very slightly, get myself to where those were starting and were most apparent. I'm gonna lift the material up, hold it. While holding it, apply just enough heat. I'm not actually having to stretch the material now. I'm actually letting it shrink, but I'm gonna do it in a way that benefits me and wraps that light almost perfectly. So there we go. The whole front face down with one even pull. All we have now is this little bit of funkiness right here at the corner, which also is just memory that wants to disappear. So with a little heat, all we have to do is I can just press it down with my thumb. I don't even need a squeegee. That's the memory effect going to work right there. Again, a couple more lines that we have to deal with. Nothing but a triangle pull. Lift up right here. Remember, I've already locked this edge. I don't want to lift this edge if I don't have to. And all I have to do is hold this off the car, heat it, so that the memory effect takes out whatever odd stretch was there that was creating that tension. And I can even come back with my hand, not using a squeegee, to show you here how little tension is in this area. And now, because we put that stretch and we twisted the film, all of this side right here should lay right down with a little bit of heat, using that same memory effect that applied the top edge for us. And we'll have to do a minimal amount of stretching. And there we go. It's just a kiss of heat. Look at that, no tension right there. Nothing perfect. Actually, you can see a little line in the plastic that I didn't notice was there. Something a lot of times when you're tinting headlights, you'll notice things like the casting marks and little dimples that were in your lenses that you've never even seen before because you've never looked at your lights that close up. But a lot of times, I don't know why, manufacturers will put casting marks right in the front. Dodge is notorious for it. I don't actually see one here on the Cadillac, so thumbs up for them on that. All we have to do now is take care of this back corner. Done. You'll notice I have plenty of time to set the heat gun down and come back and work. I'm not using the heat to stretch the material. I'm just softening it the most minor amount. There are some instances earlier, like when I did that first stretch, where I really am using the heat to work. But most of the time, I'm not using the heat to pull or to cause a deformation. I'm using the heat to relax or to soften the material, just like this. You naturally now just want to pull with your hand and just push and align that to the light, but I'm not going to pull with my hand at all. Instead, I'm going to feed the material tension-free straight down into that area. And see, I see a little tinting there. The little tint between the light and that tape. And a tint, I mean T-E-N-T, it's bridging. So I'm going to pull up past that bridge point and now re-squeegee straight down onto the lens. Make sure that there's no tension there. No more tinting. No weird tension anywhere on this light, not even at the tip here. Nothing is pulling back. We're gonna get well over the edge with this cut. This is gonna look as OEM as possible. You'd almost not be able to tell that this is on the car when I get done trimming it. All right, now we are cutting, and this is the most important part when working on any car. Make sure you have a very, very sharp blade. I'm using a 30-degree blade here in this yellow sleeve. By the time this video drops, we should actually have 30-degree Luxe blades available for upsell on our website. If you're buying a universal kit or any other product, I highly recommend that you get one of those. If you're gonna do more than one vinyl project on your car, it's just a great blade to have on hand. They are very high quality stainless steel sheaths, and they do have the breakaway blade, and in the back of them, you snap this off and you can snap and break your blades. Most pros have blade boxes, so when you break that off, you don't have a little sharp object laying around. But before I did that, what I would do mostly if I break a blade is wad it in a ton of vinyl that's definitely around it, so that you're safe and you don't cut anybody when they're dealing with the trash. So we're just following the body line here. I know from our other V car that Cadillac likes to put a little rubber seal right against the side of this light. I don't really know why, but it gives me no opportunity to wrap around the edge. But I'm gonna be very careful with my cutting because I don't wanna see a black mamba. I don't want to accidentally remove my blade and see a rubber seal flapping about. That is worst case scenario. You definitely don't wanna see that on your own car. You definitely don't wanna see it on a customer's car. So be aware when you're starting your projects, look for any little things like that. Is there a black seal? Is there a gasket? Are you gonna be able to make it all the way around the light? Or are you gonna have to cut on the edge? All those things are choices that you make before you start the install. You're gonna determine how well it is done. So here we go. You can see that little black gasket. Look, it's this thick. I'll show you. So my first cut was actually on the other side of it just to be safe. But this is the thickness of this rubber gasket. See how easy my blade could go through that and just ruin that gasket. I do not want that to happen. I'm being very hyper-focused in making these cuts. Got the painter's tape here. If I didn't mention this earlier, the painter's tape is so that the vinyl doesn't stick to the paint of the car and thus create tension points. It allows the vinyl to kind of slide against it. So I'm focusing all the adhesive on the light itself. The bottom of the light, we don't need to fold underneath. So we're just gonna come in right across the edge here. Cut that, pull this piece away. One other thing I noticed on this car is that it looked like you had a little touch-up paint right here, right? So another reason to use tape in your installations, especially in front bumpers, it's an area where customers sometimes will come in with touch-up paint. They may have even had so much rash that, you know, a dealership called in one of those mobile painters and they painted a section of the car. If that's the case, you've got to be very careful that the light wrap adhesive doesn't pull up that paint. I can't tell you how many times we've heard from installers that they have a car that has like a chameleon, a really cheap paint job on it, and they go to tint the headlights, and as they're pulling away the extra material, the whole chunk of clear coat just comes right off the pearl. And I don't want to see anyone get in that scenario. I don't want to scare you and make you think about that. But that 3 or 4 minutes it took me to put that tape down not only prevents that possibility, but it makes this installation much nicer, more professional, and it's going to give me better results. So those little steps are very important. And they're not steps that you have to be a pro to do. You just have to do them. There we go. I'm gonna free that right there. Lock this around the edge. So I did cut on the bumper side here, and I locked that little 1/16 of an inch right around the edge there. And here's where I'm gonna transition. I'm actually gonna be cutting on the car, and this is where things get quiet for me. There we go. The trick when cutting on a car is that you keep your blade at a 10-degree or less angle. If you get your blade peaked, you're most likely going to go straight through the vinyl and leave a crease in the paint, in the plastic, or anything else. If you leave your blade at a low angle, you're just going to score the material. If you ever see rappers take balloons and try to take their blade around the balloon, when the balloon pops is when they exceed that angle. That's when the blade digs into the skin of the balloon. So the first and most important thing is that you snap and have a fresh blade, which I just did before starting this. The second thing is you keep your angle really low and you keep almost no tension whatsoever, or no pressure, excuse me, on the blade. I'm just gonna let the blade score. Also, I've got a nice body line here from Cadillac. So this is where the transition occurs in the black plastic and the clear. So I have a very easy thing to follow. Right around just the back edge here where it gets a little bit tricky to, and see, I actually didn't even put enough pressure on it. So in some areas, while I'm pulling the vinyl away, now that I have a line drawn, pull it away, trace that line while holding it away from the light, and finish that cut. Transition to right where the fender is. And one of the most important parts is right here, to get around that corner. That's where a 30-degree blade comes in handy. A fatter blade like a 45, you run the risk of accidentally digging into that white paint, and that's not good. Happily say we did not do that here. I do see though where that rubber gasket starts, but it's taken me up into this point to actually see it. Now that I know Sarah got to deal with it, you know, the rubber gasket also brings one other thing to mind when I'm doing installs, and that is as you're cleaning the headlights. When there are rubber gaskets like this, make sure that you get all of your cleaning agents and liquids out from between them. I can't tell you how many times we've gotten 90% of the way through the install and there's a rubber gasket at the bottom and there's been just enough water in there to seep in, get behind the adhesive, and it just ruins that whole bottom area, and all the tint's coming off and you're starting back from scratch. So there we go, look at that, less than 10-degree angle. Tint cuts cleanly. We have a nice transition up here where that plastic, actually trim that out a little better, more accurate. go. That, put a kiss of heat on it. Post-heating is the most important thing. Even though we didn't do much stretch, we want to get the vinyl up to about 200 degrees Fahrenheit. That's going to release that memory effect I was talking about, where it wants to pull back. Vinyl wants to go flat. It started life flat, it wants to go flat. But if you heat it up, when it's cast vinyl, it forgets that original flat memory and it accepts its new memory, its new shape. So the most important thing, especially where I put that tension right here, so we get this up to 200 degrees. Now, 200 degrees is another important number. In some vehicles, if you have a very bright halogen headlight, an old school halogen, not an LED, not an HID, when your high beams come on sometimes, they can get incredibly bright and hot right there. If the tint gets to 200 degrees with an IR thermometer in that one spot, it will bubble and the install will fail. We've seen very few cars that have that. The one that comes to mind is a GMC Tahoe and the Denali's from the 2019 Plus, but there is a document on the website that shows you vehicles we know are incompatible with not just this film, but with any film, because the fact is there's so much heat there that the plastic is failing. Not just this plastic, it's plastic. So there we go. That light is completed. You can go ahead and remove the yellow tape from around it. See the final product.